All right, so in today's video, I'm going to try to get caught up on a lot of things that I haven't touched on lately. Get everybody else caught up on where we're at. Do a little bit of pre-work maintenance on the tractor, which I should be doing every time, but most people probably aren't doing either. And then actually do a little bit of work in the pond, and hopefully this time show you guys what I'm doing and how I'm doing it, what my thoughts are. So bear with me. I'm just now getting my voice back. I haven't had my voice for most of the last couple of days, so I anticipate that it'll probably get worse as this video goes on, but I'm really behind and I want to get everybody caught up, so we're going to do what we can as we go today. So one of the first things you'll probably notice is that I finally got the doors down. Thanks to my dad and stepbrother for helping me get those down. So got those down, finally got the tractor in the barn like it's supposed to be, out of the weather. I got the doors set inside here, so that's nice. I managed to go and pick up a bunch of my garden hoses, which they're just diffuser soaker hoses. Got the plow from my grandfather, so I can finally start working on the garden, so long as the ground will stay dry long enough to do it. And back to here. So what I'm actually going to do is work on greasing my loader. I haven't greased any of the pivot points, and you really should be doing that usually every time, but at least every couple of times you use it. And so on the Branson, I believe there's 16 grease points. I haven't gone back to the manual to verify it. I read that at one point, but I just haven't gone back to double check. And so there's 8 each side. Got here, 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 and here. And then we've got 4 down here. So I'm gonna make sure as I go that that's it. I'm pretty sure that's all of my points. So we're gonna get all of those greased up real quick. And we should be good to go. We'll start working on the pond. And exciting news on the pond. I haven't touched it in over 2 weeks, and there's still a little bit of water in the bottom. So I've got a hole that I need to repair, and that hole is actually, the most concerning part. And I think I've touched on that before, but we're gonna see if we can't continue to pack that down, which is part of why I want to get out today, where the ground's just mildly soggy, and see if I can't pack that hole in a little better, and also repair the side of the pond that I destroyed, which I'll show you guys as I get to it. So I'm gonna start with these 2 up here, and just for reference, this is the BL 150 loader on the 30 horsepower Branson. This should be pretty much the same on pretty much all the Bransons, and as far as greasing goes, this is just kind of standard for almost anything that you're gonna grease that's got a Zerk fitting like this. So you're not looking to pump and pump and pump unless you're rebuilding it and there's no grease at all. When you're just doing a little bit of touch up, you just want to grease enough to check within to make sure you're getting just a little bit of grease pushing out, and you want to make sure that you're continuing to keep clean grease inside, because the more you use it, especially in wetter environments, those things tend to want to get nasty. And down on the front of your loader, closer to the ground where you're really getting into the dirt and mud and things, you want to be more attentive down there, because that's where things are going to get the most messy. All right. You want to make sure it stays tight. If you don't, you'll get squeezed out around your fitting, and you don't want that. All right, so got just a little bit of squeeze out on the inside, which is where I was wanting to see it. I'm thinking for mine, it's about 2 to 3 pumps each. And also make sure you clean up any that does squeeze out, because if not, all that's going to do is attract dirt, and it'll cling and stick around. So you don't want that. You don't want dirt and stuff collecting inside of these. so I'm gonna go ahead and take care of all the rest of these on both sides, and we'll get out and start doing some work. All right, so I got all 16 of my grease points greased. Again, 8. On each side. I did recently check all the fluids, which is something else you should do frequently. I did that before I actually brought it down here and parked it in the barn, so I'm not going to necessarily do that right now. Nothing's leaking from underneath. I haven't had any leaks up to this point, so not overly concerned. I haven't used it enough since the last time. So we're going to go get the angle blade hooked up and then go get to work in the pond. So one of the first things I want to point out before I get started is kind of where I've started at before and kind of what's happened since. So if you've watched before, you'll know that this field, this whole field back here, drains kind of down to here. And then it drains out down through this area into my pond. And this had kind of gullied out at one point, not real bad, but it gullied out a little bit. And then this down here gullied out really, really bad. And I think I've shown that on video before. Well, a couple months ago, I actually repaired this, but I didn't get a chance to really film that. And, well, recently, I came down to do a little quick patchwork on the pond, and I got too close to the area that I had worked on before. And as you can see, I made a mess of it. As I come through, I thought I was far enough back, but I wasn't. And as I came through here, the front of the tractor sunk basically all the way to axle. And in trying to get out, I just had to kind of go forward. And, well, this is the aftermath. So I've got to do some repair on this. This is still not as bad as it was before I repaired it the last time. But it's not great. And as you can see, it's more of the dirt washed down into the bottom here. So I'm going to try to, my first priority is to re-repair this side here and continue packing it. And even still, you can see where it's settled in some of the areas that I originally kind of came through and packed. So it's important to continue packing this. I'd love to seed it and stuff, but that's just not going to work out. And we don't typically get huge heavy rainfalls here in the fall. So hopefully this will kind of grow over before next spring, but we'll see. And then one of my biggest priorities is actually down here. So down here is where I've been doing a little bit of digging, and you can see I haven't touched this in well over 2 weeks. And there's still a little bit of water here, so that's a good sign. That I'm excited about. However, right here where you can see a little bit of mounded dirt and clay. There's a sinkhole, I think, here, and I've packed it a little bit in the past. I just didn't really put much effort into it, and of course it opened back up again. And so I'm gonna actually get down here and pack in on that some more, run over that many times, and hopefully I can get enough clay and stuff in here to prevent that from washing out. Anyways, that's today's project, so we're gonna see what we can get done. So the first thing I'm gonna actually do is test and see just how soft this area is, because as deep as that was before, if it's still really soft, I'll just sink up in it and, well, it just won't do a whole lot of good. But I'm hoping today it's kind of the right mixture, right moisture level, if you will, so that it's soft enough to pack, but not so soft that it just kind of squishes and runs out. So as I walked on it, it seemed okay, but you know, you put a couple thousand pounds and things change. So we'll start with that and see how it goes. And if things are going well, we'll get this cleaned up. So the good news is this is reasonably solid and it's not sinking like it was. And so this is packing decent. So I'm gonna actually spend some time working my way top down. That middle right there might still be a little bit of problem, but I'm gonna work the edges first and hopefully not have too much trouble in the middle. But the top here is packing in real nice. In fact, it's probably packing in better than it did the first time. So I'm gonna continue to work this for a little bit, and then I'll give an update. All right, so I just got finished up digging in the pond, getting things kind of cleaned up. Turns out the ground was in pretty good condition to be able to do what I was trying to do. So I'm gonna give you kind of a recap of everything I've done and talk about how I feel about how the Branson actually did. This is the most work I've done in the pond since I've had it. And as you can see, it's nice and muddy. So the one thing I couldn't really do real well is grade. The ground's just a hair too wet for that, and so it was kind of pulling up the dirt and clay and chunks a little bit. So I'm gonna have to let it dry out some before I can really grade this real well. But the parts in the pond that are good and packed, it did all right. So no serious complaints there. It's, again, better than I expected. So let me come down here and it'll be a little easier to see what we're working with. So about right down through the middle here, through this larger track, is where the original kind of culvert was, that I filled in and packed in the first time. And you can see where the ground was still soft and not packed well, and so it's kind of lumpy. And I tried to grade that out some, but it was kind of making it worse. So I decided just to run up and down it numerous times, getting it good and packed in. So even though the grader blade was a bit too aggressive with how soft the ground is right now, something that a lot of tractors have that I didn't know about, and maybe you don't know about, I was still able to use to help me do some grading with. And so you've probably heard of back dragging or just dragging with the bucket in general. And I have a little bit of a history using a skid loader to do some digging. And as I've said before, digging with the tractor and digging with a skid loader is really quite a bit different. But something that this had that helped me out, I'm going to try to demonstrate for you. Now, I don't know how well it'll actually demonstrate on camera, but it's called a floating bucket, or at least I don't know if that's an official term, but that's what I'm calling it. And what it does is allow the hydraulics to essentially go into, think of it like a neutral. And so if you take the shifter, or the lever here, not shifter. So if you take the lever here and bump it all the way up, you see it's locked out here. And I don't know if you caught that or not, but the bucket dropped all the way to the ground. And so what that does is actually allow the bucket to float. And so it will more or less move up and down with the ground. Now, the way I've got it sitting now, because it's tilted forward like that, if I were to drive forward, it's just going to bury up and not do real well. But it essentially puts, your two main lifting pistons into a neutral so that this bucket can float. Now, what setting this to floating actually allowed me to do is tilt my bucket all the way up, and then I could use this rounded part at the bottom to either push dirt or back drag and pull the dirt. And because it's more rounded on the bottom, it's a lot less aggressive than that sharp angle blade is. And so that allowed me to do a little bit, easier smoothing and grading, even though I can't, really use the blade real effectively. And it won't really show up on camera next to at all, but still wanted to touch on it so I have record of it. This spot right here, and you'll notice, just for reference, the spot that's holding water consistently, which is awesome, and the spot right out here, and maybe if I get lower to the ground you'll be able to see that there's a bit of a divot there. I have packed and packed and packed and packed, and I've driven over this dozens of times now with the tractor, especially using the front smaller tires, where a lot of the weight is, to just kind of frankly park on this spot, pack in some more dirt and clay. So I'm hoping that this will hold, but we'll see how their next rain does. I'm going to try to come out here each time it does rain and continue to pack that down real tight. Right now I probably got about 8 inches of clay in there, so got quite a bit, and hopefully it'll hold. So something I want to talk about that I touched on briefly when I bought the tractor is its capacities and ability. So far, with a little bit I've used it, I'm almost to 20 hours. In fact, I think I'm about 45 minutes or so from 20 hours usage. And I really think, especially today, doing some extra digging and stuff like I've done, and like I've done in a few other occasions in the past, is I really think that extra weight has made it easier to do some digging. And I've talked about the difference between a skid loader and the tractor, and one of the things that I've noticed is, when operating the skid, a lot of times you could basically just bury that bucket and lift the front of the skid loader up, and because they weigh so much, you can really get a good bit of dirt when you're digging. Tractors, they just don't weigh that much, especially not in the front. And so when you're digging with the tractor, I found that you had to basically set the bucket level on the ground and tilt just a little bit, and you still get a little bit of digging. And of course, the extra teeth on the front of my bucket help break up the dirt a little bit. But you're just not going to get the same kind of penetration that you would with something that's got more weight. That said, this is, roughly 1,000 pounds or a little better heavier than most other tractors in its class. And again, we're talking in that kind of 20 to 40 horsepower range. So that extra weight, I really felt like helped me, get some of this work done. It's been a really good tractor so far, and I can't complain. The last thing that I wanted to give a quick update on is where the chickshaw ended up. And so since I'm not going to be using it for the next couple of months, I decided to set it back here in the barn out of the way. And I didn't get a chance to film bringing it down here because I was in a pretty big hurry. We've had a lot going on lately, and with me not being 100%, I just didn't get a chance to film that. But it towed down here fine behind the four-wheeler. No issues, got the kickstand up, and now I've got it sitting in here in the barn, and it'll be ready come springtime. All right, well, I appreciate you sticking with me, even with my voice going out. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, consider subscribing, and hopefully I'll be able to get you some more consistent updates on how things are going. See you next time. Have a good day.